From Sridham Mayapur, dear devotees. My name, last time I checked, is Madhavananda Das, and these are our daily adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. So today we're still on our discussion, the sixth part. We're calling Meeting in Kuruksetra, but actually we're a long ways away from Kuruksetra. We're still in Vrindavan, and Krishna's on his way to Mathura. And this is our third part, speaking about how Krishna left Vrindavan. So first we'll offer a few prayers. Narayanam namaskrityam naramschaiva narotamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayam udirayat vedi ramayaneschaiva purane vadate tata Adavante cha madhye cha hari sarvatra giyate Mukam karoti vachalam bhangum langayate girim Yat kripa tamaham vande Shri Gurum dinatadanam Paramananda madhavam Paramananda he madhava Padunga Luchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Harinka Name Vandavela Parikori Be Chakadola Se chakadolanka paraye manamo rahu nirantare manamo nirantare rahu ha Krishna boli jiva jao ha Krishna boli jao jiva Moteu dada radha dava Moteu dada radha dava Moteu dada radha dava Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya Good morning, dear devotees from Sridham Mayapur. So we're still speaking about Krishna's departure from Vrindavan. We want to be speaking about the meeting in Kuruksetra, but unless you speak about the separation, you can't really understand the depth of the meeting. So we'd like to speak something today more from the 39th chapter, the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, and I'm hoping also to go on a little bit today to a couple little known books. One is called Akrura Samvad, and also from some different commentaries. It's some things from Brihad Bhagavatamrita. We have a lot of different exciting things in mind. But before I begin, I just want to offer a prayer to the lotus feet of my revered spiritual master, Sri Srimad Gaur Govinda Maharaj, who introduced me to Srila Prabhupada, and from whom is my life and soul. He gave us everything. Gora Graganya Gana Gota Goloruharam Gauranga Gudatama Gopyada Kopa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namami Vanchakopa Darubhischa Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we're reading from the 10th canto, chapter 39 of Srimad Bhagavatam, about Krishna's departure from Vrindavan. And yesterday, or 2 days ago, on Sunday, a few days ago, we spoke about how Krishna was taken by Mother Yashoda, and she put the hand of her Gopal in the hand of Nanda Maharaj, and she made him promise she'd return him. And we heard something from a wonderful book called Mathura Vijay by Bhakta Kavi Gopal Krishna, one of the most astonishing poets, Gaudiya Vaishnava poets in Orissa, the words of the gopis. And we heard from Rupa Goswami's Lalita Madhav. Today we hope to get on to reading something from Jiva Goswami's Gopal Champu, and also from this wonderful book called Akrura Samvad. But first I want to speak something from the 10th canto. This is chapter 39, text number 24. And these are the words of the gopis when they saw Krishna leaving from Vrindavan. Tasam mukundo madhumanju basitai grihita chitta padavan manasyapi katam punarna pratiyashyate bala gramyasala jasmita vibramai brahman. The gopis, they spoke amongst themselves and they said, Tasam mukunda madhubasita, that although Krishna is like Mukunda, he's very intelligent, he's manasvi, and although we know that Krishna, he's Padavan. Padavan means that he's very subservient. We sometimes say that Krishna is not a brahmachari. Krishna is a mamachari. And he's very obedient to Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj. And he promised, Ayasya, I'm going to return to Vrindavan. So the gopis, they're speaking amongst themselves. We know that Krishna's manasvi, he's very intelligent. We know he's Padavan. He's very obedient to his mother. But we're not really sure. Pratiyashyate means we don't know. Is he going to come back or not? Because what's going to happen when that Krishna, when he sees the Salajja Smita Vibramaya Brahman, the Salajja means very, very shy. The Smita means the smiles of the Vibramaya, the enchanting ladies of Mathura. And when he hears the Manju Bashita, the very sweet words of those girls, then our Krishna, he's going to become Brahman. He's going to become bewildered. And will he ever return? We don't know. Will he come back to us or not? And then the gopis began to speak in text 26 about Akrura. Maitad Vidashya Karunasya Nama Bud Akrura Ityetad Ataiva Daruna Yosava Nashvasya Suduki Tamjanam Priyat Priyam Neshati Param Advana. The gopis, they said, what is this? This person, they're calling him Akrura. But Akrura means someone who's very gentle. But this person, he Manaitad Vidasya, he should not be called Akrura because he's Akruranasya. He's very unkind. This is his real name. He's a Taiva Daruna. Daruna means very cruel, wicked person. And a Taiva means extremely. He's a Taiva Daruna, the gopis say. He came here, and Asoa Nasva, he didn't even try to console us. Those of us who are sudukitam, very, very miserable, because he's taking Krishna away, param advana, beyond our sight. That Krishna, who's priyat priyam, who's more dear to us than our own life. Again, 2 verses later in text 28, the gopis say, Nivayama samupetya madhavam kimno karishyan kula brida bandavaha mukunda sangan mimisarda dusyajad daivena vidvamsita dina chetasam. They said, now, Nivarayama, we should stop him. We should go up to Krishna. What do we care? Kimno Karishyan Kula Brida Bandava, what our relatives say. Now, because fate, Daiva, is separating, Daivena Vidam Sita, it's separating us from Krishna. How can we survive? We're Dina Chetasam, our hearts are very, very wretched. We can't tolerate separation from Krishna. Nimisha Arda, not even for 1/10 of a second, not even for a half a blink of an eye. We can't give him up. Jiva Goswami in his Kama Sandarbha commentary says that the gopis, there's a purport to why they're using the word Madhava. Because Madhava is a name for the husband of the goddess of fortune. And the gopis, and indirectly they're saying that, oh, this Krishna, well, he has so many good qualities. Even Lakshmi wants to be his husband, indicating their dainyabhav, their mood of humility, and they're thinking that when Krishna goes to Mathura, all those ladies are going to be very, very fortunate. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Sarita Darshan, he describes that the gopis were thinking, let's go. We're going to go right up to Krishna. We're going to start grabbing his clothes and his hands, and we're going to insist, right now, get off the chariot. Krishna, we're going to tell him directly, do you want the sinful reaction for killing so many women? You can't leave us. And then one of the other gopis says, but if we do that, then all of our relatives and all the elders will discover our secret love for Krishna and they're going to abandon us. And the other gopis say, what can they do to us? And the other one says, yes, it's true. Our lives are already wretched now. Dina Chetasam, the gopis say in this verse. Because Vidvamsita, we're separated from Krishna. Our lives are so miserable. They can't do anything more to us. We have nothing to lose. And another gopi says, that's right. Even if they won't let us come back to our houses with our husbands, fine, we'll stay in the Vrindavan forest, just like the goddess is there. And then we can fulfill our real desire to stay with Krishna in the forest of Vrindavan. And another gopi says, yes, even if our elders and our relatives, they beat us or they lock us up, still we'll live happily with the knowledge that Krishna is living in Vrindavan. And somehow some of our girlfriends, they won't be locked up. And they'll figure out a clever way to bring us the remnants of Krishna's food. And then we'll remain alive. But if Krishna leaves Vrindavan, then we're definitely going to die. Text 32, the gopis describe, or Sukadeva Goswami describes. Strinam eva rudantinam udite savitaryata akuras chodegam asa kripta maitradi koratam. Even as the gopis were crying in this way, Akrura, he performed his morning duties, Maitra Adika, he did his worship and other things, and then he got on the chariot and he began to drive. Some commentaries say that Akrura offended the gopis, Jiva Goswami was just saying, because he didn't even try to console them. And because of this offense, later Akrura was separated from Krishna and the whole Shaman Chaka Jewel episode took place. And Akrura had to go and live in an undignified way in Varanasi. And Jiva Goswami comments, he says that Why is it that we don't hear about Mother Yashoda and other residents of Vrindavan crying like the gopis? He said, because they believed Krishna's words. He said, Ayasya, I'm coming back very soon. Mother Yashoda believed the words of her husband, Nanda Maharaj, and he promised her, I'm going to bring him back very soon. Shukadeva Goswami goes on in the next verse to describe, Gopastam Anvasajanta Nandadya Sakataistata Adaya Payanam Bhuri Kumban Go Rasa Sambritan. Then all the Gopatam Anvasanjata. Anvasanjata means that all the Gopa men, all the cowherd men, they begin following. Nandadya, headed by Nanda Maharaj. And they had all their wooden carts. And those wooden carts, Upayanam, they were full of different offerings. Kumban, they were put in clay pots, and they had go rasa. Go rasa. Rasa, we know rasa means the mellow or the juice. Rasa also means the element. Go rasa means ghee, or go rasa means different cow products. And they were following along behind Krishna with all those things to offer to King Kamsa. They weren't trying to do a revolution directly. They were just taking shelter of Krishna. But at the same time, they were ready to pay their taxes to this demoniac King Kamsa, even though they knew that Kamsa wanted to kill Krishna. Because they're not interested in taking part in revolution. Their revolution is they just want to see Krishna constantly, 24 hours a day. They want to be with him and serve him. And they're not interested in doing revolutions and this and that. No? Then Sukadeva Goswami goes on to say, Gopyascha dayitam Krishnam anubrajanu ranjitaha prajesam bhagavat kangsanjas cha vatishtire. At that time, the gopis were there. Gopyascha dayitam Krishnam. Dayita means someone who's very, very beloved. And those gopis were Krishnam anubraja. They were following Krishna. And then Krishna turned to them and anurajita pratyadesham. He spoke some very, very sweet words to the gopis and gave them some glance. And Krishna told them, Ayasya, Ayasya, I'm going to return. And then Sukadeva Goswami says, in text number 36, Yavad alekshate ketur yavad renu ratasyacha anu prastapitatmano lekyani vipakshita. The gopis stood there like they were lekyani, like they were painted figures. Atmana lekyani, their minds became stunned. And they just stood there like figures in a painting. And yavat alakshate ketu. Ketu means the flag that was on top of the chariot of Akrura. As long as they could see that flag, they stood there. But then even when they couldn't see the flag any longer, they continued to stay there to Renu Ratasya. Renu means the dust. And when they couldn't see the dust anymore raised by the wheels of the chariot, then Shukadeva Goswami says, Ta nirasa nivavritur govinda vinivartatane vishoka ahani ninyur gayanja priyachestitam. It was only at that time that nivavritur means they turned back. And why did they turn back? Because nirasa, they had no more hope of Govinda Vinivartane, that Krishna was going to return. They turned around. And they became Vishok, means they were lamenting like anything. And how did they remain alive? Shukadeva Goswami says, Ahani Ninyur. They spent all their ahani, their days and their nights, Gayancha Priya Chaitasam, speaking about the glories of their beloved Prana Gopal Krishna. And then Shukadeva Goswami says, Bhagavan api samprapto Rama krura yuto nripa ratena vayuvegena kalindim aganasinim. That, as we spoke yesterday, Akrura was taking that chariot, and this verse describes that ratena vayuvegena. Vegan doesn't mean to someone who's a vegetarian, but vegena means something who's going very, very fast. Ratena vayuvegena. That chariot of Akrura, it was going as fast as a vayu, as fast as the wind. And they arrived there at Kalindim Aganasanim, that Kalindi river which destroys all sins. Jiva Goswami in Laghu Vaishnav Toshini, he says that just as the gopis were suffering in separation, Krishna promises in Bhagavad Gita, Yeyatam mam prapadyante, tam sataiva bhajamyaham, I'll also reciprocate. And Krishna was also suffering like the gopis, but he hid those feelings. Jiva Goswami says, and he uses a particular word. He hid those feelings because he was very grave. And what is that word that he used in Sanskrit? He was Gambhira. Again, as we spoke a few days ago, if we look like Sherlock Holmes with his magnifying glass, if we look carefully at the words of the six Goswamis, we can find that subtly, perhaps even without their conscious awareness of it, they're speaking sometimes and indicating Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So here he's saying that Krishna was also suffering like the gopis, but he hid those feelings since he was Gambhira, since he was grave. And so Krishna, that same Krishna, who told the gopis, Naparayeham niravadya samyujam, how do I repay my debt to you? The only way I can repay you, pratiyatu sadhuna, by your own behavior. Krishna had to adopt the behavior of the gopis. And he had to go to the Gambhira in Jagannath Puri. And Jiva Goswami goes on to describe that Krishna, why did he go to Mathura? He went there because he's paritranaya sadhanam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. He's Bhagavan. And he has to go there. He has duties to perform. He has to kill Kamsa. He has to kill Chanura and Mushtika. He has to kill so many demoniac kings because he has a job. He's Bhagavan. But still, because Krishna couldn't tolerate the pain of the gopis, he went to the place in the Jamuna, which is known as Aganasanim, that which destroys the sins. Aga means sins. And when Sukadeva Goswami says Aganasanim, we're reminded of that demon, Aghasura, who Krishna also destroyed. And indirectly then Krishna is indicating to the gopis that just as I killed that Aghasura demon, that sin, so also I'll destroy this suffering. And Jiva Goswami explains that he went to that place because there was a sacred place of Ananta, Balaram. And that place was Aganasanam because it was capable of destroying all suffering. And Krishna went there because he thought, this may destroy my suffering. Krishna was suffering already in separation from the gopis. And he thought, if I go to this place and it'll destroy my suffering. But Jiva Goswami says, his suffering could not be clearly seen because he was in the company of Balaram and Akrura. So he couldn't show that. And therefore Jiva Goswami uses the word Gambhira. The word gopi comes from the bij dhatu gupya, which means to hide. And those gopis are those persons who hide their feelings. And when Krishna wants to understand the feelings of those gopis, he becomes Gambhira. He becomes very, very grave. And he goes to the Gambhira. Some Vaishnavas have said that although the gopis, they turned and they came back, Mother Yashoda became stunned. And she just stood there in the road, waiting for her Gopal to come back. It's said that before Krishna left Vrindavan, the night before he left, that Balaram, he wrote a song, a poem, glorifying Krishna's activities like killing Putana. And the reciters like Snigdhakanta and Madhukanta, they began to speak those verses very loudly. And Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, when they heard that, they became very, very happy. Now, why is Balaram speaking about Krishna's killing Putana? Krishna killed so many demons. He could speak about Krishna's killing Aga or Baka or so many. But why Putana? Balaram is indirectly giving some consolation to the Brijbasis. Don't you know, he's telling them, when he was just a little baby, he killed this great, terrible demon as Putana. So who is this Kamsa? He's so insignificant. You don't worry. He's already dead. And Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda are listening to, that's right. Our Krishna's going to kill Kamsa. No problem. Huh? Before he left, Jiva Goswami and Gopal Champu says, he folded his hands and he offered praise to the Brijbasis. Huh? And he asked them, please give me permission to go. And at that time, the Brijbasis told him, no, we'll go with you. Huh? And the Brijbasis, they told Krishna, Mata bastreva seyam bhakashamana tavatvadvasa swasavaga soyam tataschatadva kimaparam akilam gokulam tadrigeva sarvesham sasvad antaridisa vasasi yatas tvam tatas tvam Vinakim Gehai Artai Shari Rarasubir Api Bhavet Praninam Gokulasya. They address Krishna as the killer of the Baka demon. Baka Shamana, you destroyed that Baka demon. Now Mata Bastreva Sayam, don't you know that your mother, her breath, it's just like the breath of a bellows. A bellows is an instrument they use, that the blacksmith uses to pump air when they want to make the fire hotter. Your mother, she's breathing like those billows. And your father, he's in the same situation. What can we say? Api bhavet praninam gokulasya. Everyone in Gokul is like this. Huh? Because you reside in the hearts of all the residents of Vrindavan at all times, and without your presence, Gehar Artar, Sharirar, Asubir. What is their Geha, their house? What is their Arta, their wealth? What is their Sarir? What is their body? What is their life heirs? You're their everything of the residents of Vrindavan. They cried, and they became stunned. And then Krishna, understanding their sorrow, Krishna told them, Yuyam me pranato priyatamatsurido yanimitam devagnim meneham panakavam tamapi giri varam kanduka prayameva vat yadyapyaitana yuktam vachasi rachayitum syad atapi klamam va pashyams tadyata prag akaravam aduna tadvad eva pravachmi. Krishna told them, Yuyam me pranato me Priyatamo surido. He said, what you're saying is not true. Krishna's saying. He's saying that I am your life heir. He said, but you should know something. You're more dear to me than my life heir. And I'll give you evidence. Yanimitam devagnim. Don't you remember? When I took that forest fire and I drank it, just like panakabam, like it was some nice sugar water, sugar candy. And you don't remember tamapi girivadam kanduka prayameva. I lifted that great mountain like it was a toy ball. I shouldn't have to say all this. Yadyapi etana yuktam vachasi. I shouldn't have to say this, Krishna says. But seeing your grief, I'm reminding you of this. You should know. And then Krishna told them, my father, who is the life of my mother. We don't often hear about Mother Yashoda's love for Nanda Maharaj. But there Krishna says that my Bappa, he's the prana of my mother, her life. Because for Mother Yashoda, Krishna is her everything. But it was Nanda Maharaj who gave Krishna to Mother Yashoda. And similarly, the devotees, they have love for their wife, for their husband, for their friends, for their children, who give them Krishna. So Krishna told the Brijbasis, my father, who's the life of my mother, and the children of the people of Braj, those children, they're my soul, and they're so dear to me. You should all come with me. And those who stay here, what should they do? The cows are everything for Krishna. You stay here and you serve my mother. And you serve the cows. And in this way, you maintain my life. Because these two, Krishna's indirectly saying, these are my life. My mother and the cows. And then he said that Upananda Binandas Chapiti Vyo Purvajo Pitu. Rupa Goswami says the elder brothers of Nanda Maharaj were Upananda and Abhinanda. Those two older brothers of Nanda Maharaj, they should stay in Braj and manage things. Right? That's what happens when you're senior. Why do you want to be senior for? So Upananda and Abhinanda, they're senior to Nanda Maharaj. So what happens? They have to stay in Vrindavan and they can't go to Mathura with Krishna. And he said, but Pitrivyo too, Kaniyamso. Kaniyamso means a younger brother. Kaniyamso Swatam Sananda. No, Sananda and Nandana, sometimes they're known as Sunanda and Pandava. Those are the younger brothers of Nanda Maharaj. They'll come with me also. So that's what happens. You want to become a senior devotee? Really? Well, very good. Then you'll get to stay behind. You won't get to go on the Harinam. You'll get to take care of the accounts. You'll get to take care of some politics in the temple. That's what happens. And you may not be able to go with Krishna. I can never understand why anyone wants to be a senior devotee or why someone wants to be a manager. Once I was alone with my Guru Maharaj. We were flying back on the plane from England in 1994 when I was his personal servant. And I took the opportunity when we were alone on the plane to tell him, Guru Maharaj, I can't imagine why anyone would want to be a temple president. It means you have to deal with money, you have to deal with politics, you have to deal with women, all kinds of craziness. And Guru Maharaj nodded his head, completely in agreement. And then he was quiet for a moment. And he turned to me and he said, unless your guru tells you, and then you must. And I started shaking. Oh God, please, don't let him tell me that. I don't want to do that. Because we tell devotees sometimes that if you want to go deep in your bhajan, then you should respect the managers. Because if you don't respect the managers, they may make you a manager. That's what happens when you want to do politics and you don't want to give respect to other people because you're more important and more senior than all of them. So, Upananda and Abhinanda had to stay behind in Vrindavan. But Sunanda and Nandana, they went. And then Krishna took permission from his mother, from Nanda Maharaj's brothers' wives, and from his brothers, and from their sons. Krishna took permission from everyone. I'd like to speak something coming up here about the initial letters that Krishna exchanged with the gopis. It's such a beautiful discussion, but it's a little bit of a long discussion. I think I'm going to stop here. Jiva Goswami in Gopal Champu, he says that Krishna and the gopis, Krishna's on his way to Mathura. He's not even arrived in Mathura yet, and he's already writing letters to the gopis. And he's sending those letters. And Jiva Goswami says those letters, just like it's very romantic, a very romantic person may take a rose and squeeze the rose and get some juice from that rose, and then he writes a letter with the juice of that rose, or he writes a letter with some perfume. Krishna and the gopis, they were writing letters that were made from kumkum and that were mixed with kajal in their tears and perspiration they were experiencing, sweating and separation from Krishna. And those letters were delivered by Madhu Mangal, who brought them to the gopis. And then the gopis would read the letter out loud. Even before Krishna had left Vrindavan, before he had arrived in Mathura, the gopis would read those letters. Oh, this is what Krishna is saying. And then they would write a reply with their tears and kumkum and their perspiration. And what does it mean when Jiva Goswami says that the ink that they used was mixed perspiration with kumkum and kajal? Because they were perspiring. And the perspiration was going on their breasts. The tears were coming from their eyes, going to the kajal, and coming down on their breasts. And the perspiration is being mixed with that kumkum, which is on their breasts. And that was the ink the gopis used to write letters to Krishna. So in our next session, which is going to be, today is Wednesday, is going to be on Friday, we want to discuss something about what was it that Krishna told the gopis and what did the gopis reply. So I want to stop there, and I want to thank all the devotees. I don't know if Raghava Pandit Prabhu is still online. I'm very happy to see you here, my dear brother. And Madhupati Prabhu and Advaita Chandra, Vijay Krishna from Portugal. He says he's in love with our email publication. Thank you. And Manju Krishna Prabhu, Mahindra, he's offering pranams. And Raghava Pandit, he says, Radha Baba Duty Suvali Tam Nomi Krishna Swarupa. And he's written in Bengali. That's Paka Bengali. That's really beautiful. Vijay Krishna Prabhu has made a comment. If anybody has any comments, I'll read these out right now. We can discuss. Vijay Krishna Prabhu's comment, he says, I love to hear your speeches because of the quality of your English, because you speak as slow as Portuguese people need for understanding your message, and because of how deep is the spiritual message of your classes. Well, that's very sweet. Very nice comment. Thank you. We speak slowly sometimes because we often go to crazy places like Russia, and devotees have to translate for us. And if you speak really fast before them, they're going to die. So you have to speak a little bit at a time. And actually, it's a very nice way to digest things. And Madhupati Prabhu has commented, very nice comment, His Holiness Sivaram Swami once said that being a manager is a curse. That's right. And Raghava Pandit Prabhu has given a very beautiful comment here. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet, from William Shakespeare. That's very beautiful. So those are all the comments we have right now. If anybody else has any reflections they'd like to share, you can paste them in, write them in now. Otherwise, I want to ask if devotees here have anything. Krishna Kund? We have some comment. You can come here and speak into our space ball here.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. First of all, I really like this point about how it's not just the gopis who were literally dying in separation, but how Krishna was also feeling this separation, and how he spoke about that place, Agavasini. And how this was described, these hidden feelings of Krishna were described by the word Gambhira. I really like that, how Goswamis bring up this point about Mahaprabhu within Krishna Lila anytime, even subconsciously, that they can. The other thing is that earlier you said that Balaram, when during Kaliya Lila, when the Brijbasis were practically dying at Kaliya Daha, he was smiling to console them. And here we see that actually, although he wasn't explicitly consoling them, but still, he gave a little hint about Putana. How just as Putana was killed by Krishna, Kamsa will also very quickly will be finished. So I really like this point that he actually didn't leave them hopeless. And I also really like this point about Krishna saying that my father is the life of my mother. And similarly, and why? Because my father gave me to my mother. And similarly for devotees who gives them Krishna, other devotees, their Gurudev, that person, those persons are our lives.
Such nice comments. Thank you very much, Krishna Kun. It's so wonderful to have Krishna Katha with the devotees. And the Bhagavatam says, Parasparana Kathanam. It should be some back and forth. It's not a lecture, it's not a sermon in a church, and it shouldn't be like a commercial on television. We're trying to get money or something. So, there's no more comments online. We'd like to ask Her Grace Anapayani Radha if she has any wise reflections or comments.
Krishna Kund didn't leave for me almost anything. But only one thing I want to...
Krishna Kund's random, she was chilling.
Yeah, it was so beautiful to hear. Thank you. I just wanted to add one more thing, that it was interesting for me to hear about Akrura, that he actually committed, some of our acharyas consider that he committed as offense towards gopis because he didn't console them even. So, and that's why he had to be separated from Krishna also. So it was interesting.
Once Krishna Kund and I went to speak with Radha Govinda Maharaj. He's a wonderful, wonderful sadhu who grew up with the Bhagavatam, and is just one of the most wonderful saintly persons we know. And we were speaking to him about Vrindavan. And Maharaj told us, he said, if you want to stay in Vrindavan, you have to be careful not to hurt the heart of any of the Brijbasis. So this is what Akrura did. Akrura hurt the heart of the gopis. And even though we see Jiva Goswami says that Krishna told the Brijbasis, don't be angry with Akrura, it's not his fault, still he hurt the heart of the gopis. And because of that, he lost Krishna's association later on. So we'll go ahead and stop there, unless there's any other comments from anybody. Thank you very much. And so in our next session, we'll hear about, there's actually several exchanges of letters, at least 3 exchanges of letters between Krishna and the gopis. And this is the initial exchange before Krishna even arrived in Mathura. And we'll speak something about that on Friday. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Vancha